Ahoy! In the new patch, New World got a new unique boss that also drops a named item that you cannot get anywhere else. The perks on this named item are very strong, especially considering that it's not actually that hard to get once you know where to look. I only learned about this today and I figured I should let you know right away, because right now Starstone is mutated and this hidden boss is in Starstone. So if you're running that anyways, might as well grab the secret boss and this new weapon. I'd like to thank Tylag, who was the first one to tell me about this boss. To get to the room where the boss is in, you need to get to almost the end of Starstone. In the very last room before the final boss, you find Burnt Becca and Erebus. Normally, after defeating the two, you open the door and walk over to the boss. Instead, you need to turn around. To your left is an empty hallway that doesn't really indicate that it leads anywhere. But if you follow this hallway down to the end and then turn to your left, you actually see a boss with two small minions. And this is Limos. Limos is honestly pretty easy to defeat, he's not a strong boss by any means. This can also be beneficial if you skip another boss in the dungeon and still want to get all of the dungeon's achievement for the mutation, so he's actually a very convenient boss in multiple ways. Limos can drop many of the named items that can generally drop in the dungeon, but he can also drop a hatchet called Fleeting Reality. And the first thing that I have to say about this hatchet is that it actually looks extremely cool. It's a see-through glass hatchet. But not only does it look cool, it also has a very strong mix of perks. It comes with 20 strength and 10 dexterity at 600 gear score, and has Enchanted, Refreshing Move, and Chain Nature. This particular collection of perks is maybe even better than you may be thinking. Obviously, it is very strong in a melee-focused build. Enchanted increases your damage significantly, and you're using a lot of light attacks with the hatchet. Refreshing Move reduces your cooldowns with light attacks, and you're using a lot of light attacks, so once again, very useful. And while Chain Nature isn't quite as good for single target damage as Attunement, it is far from a bad perk. Also, I have been told, even though I haven't fully verified that yet, that Chain Nature is better for stacking hard runes, so in some situations this may actually be even more effective. But it gets even better. Apo made this discovery 2 days ago and posted a comment about it, talking about how chain perks now work with the throwing hatchet, and was wondering if it works with Enchanted too. Thanks to Fleeting Reality, I can answer that now, and the answer is yes. Enchanted works with throwing hatchets, Chain works with throwing hatchets, and Refreshing Move also works with throwing hatchets. The implications of fighting around an objective with Chain are huge, and even more so with the Refreshing Move perk, which adds around 3% reduction to the already existing 5% reduction that you get from any thrown hatchet if you spec into it, though Refreshing Move only affects the normal thrown hatchets and not the ability ones. In the context of Enchanted, it's also worth pointing out that I know a lot of hatchet players prefer Rogue, but Rogue does not work for thrown hatchets, because thrown hatchets cannot backstab. Now, as you may know, I do like having Empowering Rending Throw on my hatchet to maximize the thrown hatchet damage in PvE, but in PvP I think that is less important and I can just have that on an armor piece, because the damage loss that I would have in particular here is offset by Enchanted anyways, and that helps my light attacks more as well. Because of the particular mix of perks that Fleeting Reality has, it is a very nice melee hatchet, it is a nice hatchet for mixed builds where you're using a bit of range and a bit of melee, and it is a nice hatchet for full throwing builds. So nice in fact that I'm gonna make it my PvP throwing hatchet at this point. As such, I highly recommend stopping by Limos every time you do Starstone. But that is not the only strong new item from Starstone. There is also, for example, an illegal perk item that actually made it past the PTR. You may or may not be aware that Darkness Defined used to have double damage con perks and got nerfed before it left the PTR, and is now significantly worse than it was in the state beforehand. An item that didn't get the same treatment is Burial Spear, which drops from Simon Grey. The attribute of this one is full dexterity, and it comes with Enchanted, Thwarting Counter, and Enfeebling Skewer. So you're dealing extra damage with your light and heavy attacks, that's the first damage con perk, and you deal around 20% additional damage to targets with Active Grit, which is the second damage con perk here. Normally this is a perk that I don't particularly care much about because it's relatively niche, but it's interesting in the case of Spear because you can combine it with the perk of the Spear skill tree. Unerring Precision also gives you 20% extra damage against targets with Active Grit. This combination is extremely strong against, for example, 300 strength users or people that heavy attack on the Greatsword a lot. It's a great weapon to box most melees because you already get a massive advantage in most trades from Enfeebling Skewer, one of the few perks that is actually worth having on your weapon. And then on top of that you deal more damage when they attack, so I think that's pretty great. Neither Enchanted nor Thwarting Counter by itself would be my preferred perk on a spear, but having them in combination means you can really trade into your enemy's face and likely win the trade. But if you prefer Rogue for dealing damage, the dungeon has an option for that as well, which is Two-Face. This only drops on mutation level 8+, and then can drop from any named mob, and comes with Rogue, Plagued Crits, and Keen. I consider Rogue and Plagued Crits very good perks to have on a spear. Keen not so much, but on the other hand, having Keen kinda enhances your chance to get Plagued Crits effect, so I guess that's a bit of an upside. But Simon Grey also has other interesting drops. One of them is Simon's Hacksilver Ring. This comes with Strength, Slash damage, leeching, and hearty. This makes it pretty effective both in PvP and PvE. Rings are always a bit of a debated topic, for example Keen, which doesn't benefit you in backstabs in PvE, versus slash damage, which can hit in power cap and that type of stuff, but really this is a very solid ring to have, and realistically you probably need multiple rings with different gems anyways, especially in PvE, so if you get one I would definitely keep it. Simon Grey also drops a unique named set, which is Medium and Focus, and comes with Ancient Ward, Invigorated, and Refreshing. While it's typically not advisable for healers to run Medium, you can slot 2 of these pieces in your set anyways, if you for example go for a Medium leg wear and Medium boots. Especially on a healer, having Refreshing as a secondary perk is very strong. The next item is a fantastic all-rounder that can be used by everyone, and that is Graveguard Seal. It comes with full Constitution, and comes ironically with a Slash Ward gem slotted already, along with the Slash Protection perk, reducing your slash damage by around 10%. It also has Health and Divine. For most players there are better options than Divine, so it's probably not a best in slot amulet, but it's pretty close to that. This drops from Electos the Relentless, arguably the most annoying mini-boss in this dungeon. And as we're on the topic of jewellery, the last boss, Groinghoul the Regent, drops the Fanged Ring, which comes with full dexterity, extra thrust damage, leeching, and refreshing evasion. Very solid option for dex users since they don't really need hardy anyways. The Space Between is a very nice base level tank sword. Comes with Constitution, Hated, Enchanted, and Keenly Fortified. So relatively similar to Curiosity Greed, but you get Enchanted instead of Keen. I honestly prefer it because the crit chance with this sword is ridiculously high anyways. This one drops from multiple lost enemies, Simon Grey, the Star Excavation Abomination, and Safety Officer Richards. Aside of the Fanged Ring, there are some at least decent options for dex users as well. The Obsidian Edged Musket once again drops from Electos the Relentless, comes with full dex, refreshing power shot, Vorpal, and Keenly Jacked. Not best in slot since it has no attunement and relies on Vorpal, but definitely a good baseline. Alternatively, there is also Tomb Raider's Rifle, also full dex, with Keen, Vorpal, and Keenly Empowered. Not my personal preferred mix, but if it's your cup of tea, it drops from Simon Grey. On the bow side of things, we have Signal, which is full dex, Chain Fire, Enchanted, and Mortal Power. This one can drop from any named mob, but only on mutation level 9+. Foreman Nakashima can also drop the Cavern Lurker's Defense, which gives you Enchanted, Vorpal, and Shirking Arcane. Landing a headshot with that one after dodging an attack is definitely gonna hurt. For the healers, there is Lost Faith, which can drop from any mob, which comes with Blessed, Refreshing Divine Embrace, and Mortal Refreshment. Obviously not quite as good as Refreshing Move, but I think especially in PvE content and mutations, getting Mortal Refreshment is still okay for cooldown reduction. Now, of course, there is another one, which is Hybris. If you're interested in hearing more about Hybris, I will link you a video here that I made about this extremely strong greatsword. In the next days, we're going to talk about some other interesting new farms, so if you'd like to see that, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get notified. Also, I'm going to talk about some upcoming MMOs that I'm excited for. Hope to see you for that. Thanks for watching. Sloth out.